All right. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Corey Langley with the NATDA, and I'm here with two of our advisory board members, Shane of Action Trailers and Nick Mersberger of Mersberger's Trailers. And we are going to be talking about some of the things that are plaguing the trailer industry right now. And I think one thing that is on everybody's mind is inventory. There's a lot going on right now. Just to start off, let's start about what the industry looks like for you two specifically. What does the state of the trailer industry look like for you guys right now? And Nick, I'll start with you.
Up here by us, it's about half of what we were doing prior 2 years. It has really slowed up. We're starting to see some people coming back asking us if they can downtrade to lower their payments. So it's definitely on the downturn, quite different than what it was 12 months ago.
And Shane, you've got a little bit of a different experience being up in Canada. I know it's not too far from Nick, but slightly different in how that works. How's it looking for you guys up there right now?
It's definitely taken a 180. There's no question there, Corey. And it's even a 180 prior to COVID. So COVID numbers aren't always the best to gauge by, because obviously it's a little bit skewed, our industry especially, therefore that. So for us, we're very similar to what Nick's is at 50 to 60% down right now, but that's pre-COVID. So that's not even just last year or so that we're talking numbers wise. So definitely seeing, which unfortunately I expected. I've been talking about it with multiple different people for the last 12 plus months that this is going to happen. So I was hoping that it wasn't true, but for everyone's sake. But it's just obviously with inflation right now, the raw material costs, it's outrageous and outlandish of how that what the manufacturers right now are charging. Then us, obviously, as a dealership, have to in turn pass that on to the consumer. And over here in Canada, the biggest difference is the exchange rate, where we're buying a majority of all of our enclosed product, especially all from the States. So we're paying the exchange difference, which right now is between 30 and 40 cents. So on top of these outlandish surcharges prices that we're paying an additional 30-40% on top of that, plus then going to mark up our profit. So a trailer that we're selling for a 6x12 trailer enclosed for $3,000 a couple of years ago is literally now $6,500, and our profit range is right around the same percentage.
So sticking on that surcharge conversation a little bit, you guys have had a lot of conversations with various manufacturers. When do you think that those surcharges are going to come back down? What are we looking for in that realm? And Shane, I'll throw that one over to you first.
So Nick and I have both been chatting back and forth for months and months, and we deal with a lot of the same suppliers, and we're trying to work together and figure out how to obviously find the best way to conquer this and do it so it's winning for both of us, obviously for the manufacturer and us dealers there from that standpoint. So they've started coming down already, to answer your question a little bit, but we're talking surcharges that were 65% that are now down to 57%. So, it's still outrageous what it is. And unfortunately, I think some of the larger companies that still have these inflated surcharges are bigger corporations. So these bigger corporations, it's tougher for them to do necessarily a large drop compared to some of these smaller companies, which we both deal with, smaller manufacturers, which have come down obviously a lot more than just 7%, 8% there. So these bigger corporations understand that they still have obviously their overhead and payroll / people are still buying trailers at this pricing. So for them, I feel everyone has obviously turned down sales-wise right now, including obviously manufacturing. And I think it's just going to have to almost hit to that rock bottom, which is going to be, I think, in the next 4 or 5 months, once they realize, oh crap, spring is not necessarily the numbers that they're used to. They're really going to have to make a change, which otherwise potentially they may be running out of business depending on their assets and cash flow in that sense, or having to really change their position in the industry there from it. So yeah, they definitely need to start now, but it's just the worry is all these dealerships like myself and Nick that have a ton of stock currently right now in our yards, they're worried about obviously us too, which we are as well, because of the fact that we have overpriced inventory. Whereas if they drop the surcharges and drop their pants right now tomorrow, for everyone else to obviously bring up, sustain more business, then it's going to be hurting some of these bigger dealers. So it's kind of working with us in figuring out how they can help compensate us for some of our inventory and give us so much, almost like a rebate. And that's what's going to need to happen for us to get out of this, because otherwise it's just going to be, I think it's going to get really messy.
That's an interesting thought, Nick. What are your thoughts on that a little bit? And then I want to throw an additional question in that over to you: is how are consumers? How are the interactions with consumers going right now as well?
Consumers, we're seeing a lot more of just the higher end buyer. The $1,500 utility trailer, we got rows of it, but the $20,000 to $30,000 plus luxury trailers, they're still going like hotcakes. So it's definitely, you can see the class that is still spending. Mm-hmm. I think back to the first question, I think about between Q1 to Q2 is when you're going to see manufacturers have to drop their surcharges, because most of them are laid off or shut down right now with stock. But like Shane said, when those spring orders that we all put in that are normally massive don't come, I don't think they're going to have another option. It'll go back to kind of how it happened in 07, 08. I mean, trailers dropped significantly, which I never thought would happen, and it did.
When comparing 07, 08, and I want to preface this by saying that I wasn't in the industry at all at 07, 08. What's a comparison like? Because I know, I believe, well, I know Nick was. Shane, I think you were in 07, 08 as well. Yeah. So what, comparing then and now, how similar of an issue are we in at the moment? And Nick, I'll let you tackle that one first.
In 07, 08, for me, it was totally different. There was just no business. We were literally rotating weeks with layoffs. Half the guys would be laid off one week, half the guys would be laid off the other week. And there was no money out there. Where right now, at this point yet, it seems like the recession's softer, and you still have the guys buying that can buy. And up here, construction is unbelievably strong. The housing market is still on fire, which I'm curious to see with interest rates raising, how fast that's going to cool off. Because most of my contractors that I deal with, they said that they haven't returned a phone call for 2 years because they've been booked and they just stay with their normal subs. And so I think it's going to be interesting in the next 3 months to see how it's going to spin out.
Shane?
Very similar to what just Nick said. Construction and landscaping, it's going gangbusters around here. Like people, you can't get anyone to do anything. We're trying to renovate our dealership outside of it. It's been like 6 months just to do some siding, and the guy comes once a week at best to do it with one guy, and it's just it's tough. So that industry, which is a good thing, it's still thriving. And with that being said, you're still going to get those buyers for those types of trailers because it's a need. Our business, for a lot of our consumers, it's a need, not a want. For the recreational, obviously, end, like just a standard consumer that doesn't own obviously business there for it, you're not going to necessarily, you're not seeing as many of those sales like the utilities as Nick said, and snowmobile trailers and racing trailers in that sort of sense, because obviously the pricing where it's at, and it's a want. Back in 2008, I started in 2004. So I was still growing steadily. I didn't have a huge staff. Like I got staff between 35 and 40 staff now members at this point. So back then I maybe had one extra staff member other than myself. So it wasn't like we didn't get hard with that. We weren't nearly to the size of obviously we're at today. And the difference back then was it wasn't as, I guess as severe of a 180-degree turn where, right now we went, from the pricing where things went in 2019 to where they are today, obviously, in that short amount of time, things over doubled in cost wise for us, for all of our trailers. Like my biggest supplier would just for 90% surcharge on all of our product, 90. And then on top of that, had the exchange rate to deal with there, which is another 40 points on top of it. So where the exchange used to be par, back in 2008, it was very close to par at that point. So there's huge sporadic difference in pricing, and that's where I think just with our industry right now that consumers and business owners are realizing that and trying to obviously conserve, and the trailers are not getting better. If anything, the quality has diminished, and that's where people understand that. They're paying more money than ever. They're getting worse craftsmanship, and even some of the types of materials that are on them right now are not nearly as quality material and gauge of steel, aluminum, that sort of thing. So, but you're paying exponentially more. So that is the consumers understanding that. No one's stupid, and that's where again the manufacturers are in control. They got to do that as far as change. Now, us dealers, we have the upper hand now, being the fact that sales are down. There's no question. So they're looking to us to come to and saying, what can we do? And for us dealers, I think the main thing is just lawyer surcharge. Come up with, spend some more time on Q&A and lawyer surcharge, and we'll be able to get through this. Don't get greedy. And unfortunately, we're taking a hit. They're starting to take a hit. They're going to have to take a bigger hit, I feel, before anything is done.